Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to answer this question for me right off the top. Am I wearing pants? You ever thought about that while you watch this show? You have no idea if I'm sitting here with pants on or not. All right, now that we've started the show off like that, let's talk a little bit of Husker football, shall we? All right, this is the top 5 new impact players for Nebraska going into the 2024 football season, who I believe that they will be, who the odds-on favorites are to be the top 5 impact players, plus a couple of honorable mentions at the end as well, people I couldn't quite fit into the top 5 because I can only fit 5 into 5. Not to mention, are there still some needs that we may need to fill after spring ball via the transfer portal? Now, this is not a transfer portal show. This is a new incoming players who's going to be the impact players out of the new players on this team show. That was a mouthful. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the Huskers have the largest, I've talked about this before, I've talked about some of this stuff before, but they have the largest incoming freshman class in America. 31 freshmen. That is a large class. In fact, tied for second, okay, with large classes in their own right are Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, North Carolina with 28. And they have 3 less than Nebraska. And they're all tied for second. Okay, now, Nebraska has a relatively small transfer portal class. Will didn't want a bunch of transfer guys. He wants a bunch of freshmen to develop and keep improving year over year and build a culture and build a program from the ground up. When it comes to transfer portal guys, he's looking for impact players right now, so he doesn't want a ton of them. Kind of the anti-Coach Prime approach, so to speak. Not a shot, just a fact. All right. Now, we do have a little bit smaller transfer portal class, 6 guys in that class to be exact. Okay, they're all at positions of need. Every single one of them is a position that we needed to find an immediate impact player, potential starter right here, right now. And that's what those guys are. Now, if you're with me and you believe Nebraska will have 5 new impact players, okay, emerge from this group of new players going into the 2024 season. And keep in mind, there's 17 returning starters on offense for Nebraska. I'm sorry, for the team, offense and defense for Nebraska, 17 total returning starters, plus both kickers. So that's 19 total returning starters. But if you believe, and I actually believe there's going to be more, okay, which is why I have an honorable mentions list at the end of the show. But I actually believe Nebraska will have more than 5 impact players. But if you're like me and you believe there will be at least 5 impact players that emerge from this new player group, smash that like button. And as always, if you enjoy the content we have here, you don't want to miss it, or you just want to support the channel, if you haven't done so yet, smash that subscribe button as well. Who knows? One day, if you subscribe, I may even let you know if I'm wearing pants during this show half the time. I got to get off that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I like to have fun if you couldn't tell. Also, I woke up at 3 a.m. this morning. I have no idea why. I'm loaded on caffeine. Let's do this. All right. Now, over the last 3 seasons, okay, we've had over 30 transfer portal additions to Nebraska's football roster, and over 3/4 of those guys have either been impact players and or starters. Now, I do believe we have transfer portal players who are going to make an impact this year, also true freshmen who are going to make an impact this year as well. Now, this is per Matt Rule on how he views transfer portal guys specifically. And I quote, "The portal for me, I either want to get someone with multiple years, no matter the position, that's on caliber with the guys we have, or someone who is an instant impact." This video is about instant impact players from the new group of players that we have. An instant impact upgrade. Someone who can make a difference, end quote. Again, that's head coach Matt Rule. Now, Nebraska's new players include 16 enrollees right here, right now in spring ball, okay, from the freshmen. 15 guys who've signed letter of intent, okay, a lot of freshmen. 6 transfer players, 3 are seniors. Obviously, we expect immediate impact from those seniors. You just heard Matt Rule talk about how he views seniors, 1 junior and 2 sophomores. Okay, these guys have great physical traits that Rule looks for. All right, the 2 seniors and 1 junior, I'm telling you right now, they are expected to not only make an impact, but probably start. They got to earn it right away. All right, and number 5, my player who's my number 5 new impact player for the Huskers, all right, is linebacker Stephon Thompson. Now, with Luke Reimers and Nick Henrich gone, okay, Stephon Thompson is primed to fill that starting linebacker role for the Black Shirts. He's working hard. I know he's had a bit of an up and down offseason, but people, along with myself, fully expect good things from him. Now, he's 6'1", 250 pounds, a junior. And I've mentioned this before. Okay, he spent his first 3 years in Tony White's scheme in Syracuse. Lots of starting experience, including starting as a true freshman as well. Now, if Stephon isn't that guy that fills the role, which I'm kind of expecting, okay, we got a couple of young, fast, athletic freshmen who are in spring ball right here, right now. First guy I'm going to mention is Willis McGahee. He's listed as a Jack from Miami. High school film. I remember talking about this when he signed in December. He could have been a running back like his dad. Okay, 6'1", 230 pounds. Keep an eye on him as he develops. All right, the next guy I'm going to mention is Vincent Shavers, a 4-star player from Miami, highly recruited, highly touted as well, very athletic. He's listed as 6'1", 205, so a little bit on the lighter side there. All right, number 4 on my list, Isaiah Nayer, wide receiver. Now, he's 6'3", 215 pounds senior. He 100% looks the part when you watch him in practice. And honestly, he has the potential to have the biggest year of any wide receiver on this team. Now, he's had some of the most eye-popping moments by far from a wide receiver so far this spring already. Okay, I should mention, I don't want people to forget about Malachi Coleman. You got Jamal Banks, you got Isaiah Nayer. Don't forget about Malachi Coleman, okay, who's as physically gifted as any player on this team. He's just not on this list because he's not a new player. Okay, now, Isaiah transferred, as we know, from Texas. But when he transferred to Texas, he was expected to be the #1 guy when he got to Austin. He got hurt, as we all know. This year really depends on how he bounces back from the injury, okay? Now, when you think about Texas and the guys they've been recruiting the past 5 years, okay, the last 2 years, they've had the #3 recruiting class in the country, the #5 recruiting class in the country. Okay, they've had 3 top 10 recruiting classes in the past 4 years. They've had 3 top 5 recruiting classes in the last 5 years. Easy for me to say. He stepped on campus expecting to be the #1 wide receiver prior to that injury. How does he bounce back this year? He's looked good so far this spring. Now, Rule doesn't bring in seniors, as we discussed, unless he expects immediate impact. Again, Isaiah may have the highest ceiling this year of any wide receiver in that room, not disregarding anybody else, but based on talent and experience combined. Again, don't forget about Malachi Coleman, just not a new player. Also, the speedy Jalen Lloyd, who, if you forgot, is a 6-time state champion in track in high school, made some big plays last year. Number 3 on my list, Micah Mazuka, the Bazooka, 6'5", 325 pounds, senior guard, physical run blocker. That's why I call him the Bazooka. He explodes off the ball. He's physical. He wants to maul you, okay? Physical run blocker up front. Played in 31 games with 21 career starts at Baylor and Florida. I've talked about him in more in-depth in previous videos. If you want more in-depth, go back and learn about him. But one thing I just thought was interesting. If he starts in Nebraska, which I expect him to, he will have started in the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, and once the ACC is dead, he will basically have started in the 3 major conferences, although we really know there's 2, but that's topic for another day. All right, now, the O-line has improved a lot over last year, and it's seemingly so far this spring. Okay, they need to continue to improve, obviously, especially in their pass protection, especially if we have a young quarterback back there. But Mazuka is a guy who almost came to Lincoln a year ago. If you weren't aware of that, some of you I know are, but he's a guy that can open up some holes for our running game, which obviously can help set up the passing game. Okay, Micah does got to improve his pass pro just a little bit. Sometimes he gets a little over-aggressive, but those are things I can live with. Number 2 on my list, another wide receiver. We need impact players at Jamal Banks. We need impact players at Jamal Banks. We need Jamal Banks to be an impact player along with Isaiah Nayer, Coleman, Lloyd, etc. We need help, and we need improved play from that wide receiver position from last year. So number 2 on my list, Jamal Banks, 6'4", 205 pounds senior. Again, another senior. Nearly 33% of Wake Forest's receiving yards last season went to Banks. And he had nearly 44% of their overall receptions from a season ago as well. This is a bad 4-8 Wake Forest team. Okay, they had 2 quarterbacks who played, all right, and neither one of them threw that well. Okay, now Sam Hartman, the previous year's starting quarterback, went to Notre Dame, and I think it left Wake Forest a little bit short-handed. There weren't a whole lot of other offensive weapons. So in fairness, Jamal was going to be targeted more, so he'd get more receptions and things of that nature. But also in fairness, the opposing teams could just roll their coverage to his side to make his life a little bit harder. And he still did really, really well. Now, he's probably the safest bet to make an immediate impact of all the new players. He's proven the most to this point. He's done the most in his career up to this point before he ever stepped foot in Lincoln. He's probably the safest bet, which is why he's number 2 on this list, to make an immediate impact in Lincoln this fall. Now, he's talented, but maybe not the highest ceiling when you compare him to Isaiah Nayer, okay? We got 2 freshman quarterbacks who are incredibly talented, Dante Dowdell, who's incredibly talented, But this is a guy, okay, maybe his ceiling isn't quite as high, no disrespect, but this is a guy who can absolutely get drafted in the NFL draft. I'm curious to see how high he goes based on how well he plays this fall. Again, you don't bring in a guy like this, especially a senior, again, unless you're expecting him to make an immediate impact. As you know, this show is sponsored by a phenomenal company, DPS Concrete Construction. Now, if you're a diesel mechanic, CDL driver, or concrete finisher and looking for work in the Omaha metro area, DPS Construction is the employer for you. They do great work. Jason Armstrong's a great employer. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. All right, number one on the list, whoever our starting quarterback is. Apparently, the starting quarterback, or the quarterback position, is the most important position on the field, I guess. I have to. I'm till the day I die, I'm going to say defensive line, and I'm completely biased when I say that. All right, all jokes aside, whoever our starting quarterback is. Now, as we know, there's 3 players currently in that quarterback room. 2 of them are new. So basic math, not a math major here, but that means there's a 2/3 chance our starting quarterback is a new player. Now, there's more that goes into it than that, but that's just basic math. Now, I'm not writing a guy like Heinrich Harburg off, who I freaking love. I kind of like what he brings, okay, if he's not the starting quarterback, what he brings to the game, almost like a relief pitcher who's a veteran who just brings something different to the mound that messes with the opposing team and the opposing batters because it's so different than any other pitcher you have, plus he's got experience. Okay, I just kind of like him in that role. Not saying he can't earn the starting job, but if he doesn't, okay, it's going to be a true freshman, as we know. Either Dylan Raiola, Daniel Kalen. I've done shows on them. If you want more in-depth analyzation on them, check out my last show, because that's pretty much what the whole show was about. And again, since quarterback is apparently the most important position on the team, all right, that's why the quarterback spot is at number 1. Whoever the starting quarterback is, the odds are it's going to be a new player, a true freshman, and I'm well aware that Dylan Raiola is the odds-on front runner to be the starter. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's some honorable mentions. 2 positions, 3 players. Number 1, running back Dante Dowdell, 6'2", 215-pound sophomore. Now, when you look at just pure talent, he's absolutely one of the 5 most talented newcomers. Okay, unquestionably, maybe one of the 5 most talented guys in the entire team. When I think of just pure talent, I think of Dante, I think of Raiola, I think of Coleman, and some other guys, but just to name a few. Okay, but with a crowded running back room, 5 good players, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of injuries this spring. Okay, Dowdell, by the way, if you haven't, realized this, he's the only new running back in that room. The other 4 are all returning running backs, but things are probably going to get more sorted out this fall due to all the injuries in the running back room this spring. Now, even if he does start, okay, even if he does earn the starting job, it's still probably going to be a 2 to 3 running back rotation. Okay, so it's hard to measure an immediate impact right now, regardless of if he starts, if he's in that rotation, or whatever the case may be. Next up, a couple of cornerbacks. DBs, Bly Hill, 6'3", 185 pounds. Now, he was listed at 165 when he first arrived on campus at Lincoln. Okay, he's a sophomore highly touted and recruited freshman early enrollee Mario Buford. Now, defensive backs coach Evan Cooper seems to like him. He's mentioned him. Okay, so he seems to like him. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the DB's position here in a second, but if Tommy Hill starts at 1 cornerback spot, Malcolm Hartzog is getting a lot of reps at safety this spring. Okay, so you wonder who's going to start at the other corner spot. Now, there's multiple guys in this conversation, but of the new guys, and honestly, maybe the odds-on favorite at this point anyways, okay, is Bly or Mario could start opposite Tommy Hill if Tommy earns that other cornerback starting job. And obviously other guys are in this mix as well, but these are a couple honorable mentions. Now, we may not need to do anything in the transfer portal once spring ball is over, but college football is so crazy. The transfer portal is so crazy. You don't know what's going to happen. So here's some still potential needs that we might have that we could address with potential new players in the transfer portal after spring is over. Potentially left tackle. You got to protect a young quarterback's blind side, okay? Teddy Prohaska, Turner Corcoran, both highly touted, both huge, both very talented, both starting experience. Neither one's been able to be consistent, whether it's due to injury, okay, and at times just inconsistent play. And I'm not sure that there's a young guy in the wings that's kind of in that battle, ready to be in that battle just yet. Maybe there is. Maybe he'll emerge. But for right now, this is a potential spot where we could bring in another transfer player as at left tackle. Maybe we don't need to. Honestly, if it's between these 2 guys, I'm okay with that. A cornerback, which I just talked about. Again, Malcolm Hartzog, 5'9", 185 pounds at safety. You don't see that a lot, but he's getting a lot of reps at safety this spring, so the coaches must like who they have at corner. That's the logical conclusion. Again, Bly Hill, okay, Mario Buford, other guys in that room. Now, Bly is kind of a guy who flew under the radar as a transfer. By far the most least talked about transfer. But he's 6'3", 185. His dad played in the NFL. He's got a lot of tools to like. Okay, so he's a guy who could be an impact player along with Mario, like I've already talked about. Okay, now there's a lot of guys coming back in that DB room, too, from a season ago, and that's kind of rare. I hope that's a huge advantage for Nebraska going forward. I will say this, Tommy Hill has the potential to be a great lockdown corner in this little bit more simplified coverage scheme of Tony White. His split scheme is not so simplified. The coverage scheme is a little bit more simplified and might fit Tommy a little bit better. He needs to have a big year. This is a guy with a lot of talent who could be a high draft pick if he has a big year. But if Tommy struggles, the new guys struggle, maybe we need to bring in a corner. I don't get that feeling, just potentially. All right, we need depth at offensive guard, in my opinion. Now, one of our starting guards, Justin Evan Jenkins, is the backup center. Basically, we don't have much depth at center if one of your starting guards is your backup center. Now, here's what happens when you have to move your backup guard to starting center if the starting center is out or gets banged up or whatever the case may be. Okay, basically, we need more guards if that happens. All right, so Micah Mazuka and Henry Letowski can absolutely start a guard. But then if Justin Evan Jenkins is a center, if Ben Scott's banged up, then maybe we're a little bit thin at guard, potentially. As guys start to emerge and improve this spring, maybe that changes. Okay, but that's something that we could look for help for, is maybe a little bit more depth in the spring if other guys don't emerge. Now, one last thought, potential transfer portal quarterback. Now, I've addressed this in the past. I've been for it, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm torn now. After having watched practice and a lot of these guys up close. Here's why. I've said Nebraska could use a veteran, probably a senior quarterback. I've said why in the past, from the transfer portal after spring ball. Okay, I still like the idea, but now I'm torn a little bit, and here's why. First of all, the coaches seem to like the quarterbacks they have. And I've talked about Dylan being ahead of the curve. Daniel seems to be ahead of the curve. I love what Harburg brings as a Swiss Army knife to the offense. So, the Huskers run with 3 team stations going on at once, pretty much their entire practice outside of individual drills, special teams, and another about half the field going as well. A lot of times one-on-ones, whether it's O-line, D-line, etc., doing one-on-one pass rush, which means pretty much all the players, including the 3 quarterbacks, are getting 100% of the reps available all the time. You want to talk about development. That doesn't happen everywhere, okay? Now, not many schools practice that way, as we've been told. Seeing it firsthand, I would agree. Not many schools practice that way. Now, if you're bringing a transfer portal quarterback, now you've got 4 quarterbacks and somebody's not getting the amount of reps they could be. And if you like what you've seen this spring, it's a risk. And I'm going to flat out tell you, we've got to get the quarterback position right this fall. Now, our first 7 games is not murderer's row. Even Colorado doesn't want to play defense or tackle anybody. Okay, they just want to score. And frankly, Deion wants his son to be the #1 pick in the NFL draft. So that's where he's focused on, is the offensive side of the ball. So my point is simply this. When it comes to developing, those quarterbacks are getting reps. If you like how they're progressing, maybe you don't want to bring in another guy into the mix. That being said, you got to get it right. You can't get it wrong like we did a season ago. And obviously, if it's a freshman that's starting, there's going to be learning and growing pains. We expect that. But now I'm a little bit more torn on the transfer portal quarterback thing. Now, here are my questions for you fine folks at home. Let me know your answers in the comments below. And keep in mind, Nebraska is an older team. We had a high retention rate. We got a lot of guys coming back. Okay, we have players in their early to mid-20s. We got seniors to COVID, extra year seniors, extra eligibility year seniors. Okay, I still believe there's going to be new impact players. So my question for you, number 1, is which new player will have the biggest impact for the Huskers in 2024? Let me know in the comments below. Number 2, do you believe we need a transfer portal quarterback after the spring is over? Just let me know in the comments below, yes or no. And I will say this. I saw a tweet yesterday, and it was interesting, and I asked the fine folks on social media. We're going to put it up now. You can look at all the stats. You can look at everything that Adrian Martinez did the last time he started a quarterback this past weekend. He did some good things, and it just got me to wonder. And don't tell me this is a ridiculous question, because I think it's fair. Yes, he was here for 4 years, and yes, he owns all sorts of records. He ended up finishing his career at Kansas State, so it's kind of a fair question to me, okay? If you disagree, let me know. Do you consider Adrian Martinez more of a former Husker or a Wildcat? Hashtag Nebraska, hashtag Kansas State. All right, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, Husker Nation, go Big Red. And always remember to throw the ball.